Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hajicek. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hajicek. We've got a great show on tap tonight, like always. But tonight we're taking a little bit different path. We're talking about true crime. Really cool true crime with John Lordan. And he is the inspiration, or I shouldn't say the inspiration. He is the guy that creates some great content on YouTube. You might have heard of BrainScratch. Yeah, that's him. Also, 3 guys and a true crime. That's him. There's all sorts of cool things that John is into when it comes to mystery. And he'll be on the bottom of the hour. We're going to be talking about some strange cases, missing people, why they go missing, how they go missing, and maybe more importantly, how they're found. You're going to want to tune in for that very special bottom of the hour interview. Again, John Lordan, bottom of the hour. Doug, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good, really good. I just want to say, well, thank you for I was gonna say everything that you do, because you got this guy on the show. Now I'm a big true crime aficionado. I love this stuff, and when I heard he was coming on the show, I got kind of excited because I'm familiar with his work. And Doug, man, you bring the best. I don't think we say that enough on the show. Doug is the guy that gets exclusively almost all these guests. I just want to throw that out there. Let you know our producer is producing.
Trying. Not easy.
Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm going to lean on you one of these days, Joel.
One of these days. Hey, if you want paranormal, I'm your guy. I can do that for you.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of cool stuff that's going on right now, a lot of great news stories. But one thing that caught my eye and your eye as we're prepping for the show was the dangerous toys, because Christmas is right around the corner. And what do you get your kids that won't kill them? That's the question I ask myself every year. When do I get the Rugrats that won't put them 6 feet under? Well, you don't want to get them any of these toys. You want to stay away from these toys, Doug.
Horrible, those toys. By the way, there were worse ones, no doubt, way worse.
Was there really?
Oh my God, I owned some that were way worse. So why don't you go through the list, and at the end of the list, I will reveal toys that were way worse.
Really? Okay. Number 1 on the list is the CSI. Can't remember the show on CBS that everyone loved. CSI. Well, evidently they had their own fingerprint kit that you could buy your kids, and they could run around and dust for fingerprints and be little detectives. Well, nobody told them or us or anyone else that there was 5% asbestos in this toy, Doug.
Yeah.
Like asbestos.
Brilliant thing to give kids.
Isn't it real?
It was probably asbestos dust.
Pure. It was probably pure asbestos.
Yeah.
They probably scraped it out of a school somewhere and said, you know what? We got to use this somewhere.
I can personally tell you, I used to play with asbestos when I was a kid too. So my grandfather had a molding shop, and he used asbestos sheets, to shield the heating coils from the platen. And I used to play with this stuff, break it with the hammers and break it. I mean, it was kind of neat stuff. But I remember hearing the news, that it caused lung cancers. And I went, oh, crap.
Oh, is that what I played with when I was a kid? Oh, my God.
But to purposely give it to him for a toy, brilliant.
And before the show, I looked these toys up, and you could still get this toy on eBay.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
You could still buy it right up.
Yeah.
It's still there.
I'll send you one.
If you want some asbestos-laced toys, keep listening because there's more on this list that made it for that. But magnetics is a little bit different. Magnetics was recently, it was basically an erector set using magnets. I mean, you could build whatever you want to with these magnets. Well, the problem was little kids were starting to eat these magnets. And they'd swallow the magnets. It wasn't a big deal if you got one and they swallowed them, but they'd swallow like 10 of them and they would connect together.
What could go wrong?
Oh my God, it was causing blockages. It was, they're connecting through tissue and they're cutting off blood circulation to organs. These kids are eating these things and they were having a pretty bad end. It was not good for those little kids.
Kids eat, they'll eat
everything.
And they'll never tell you. Or have you ever found, Joel, you've got kids, have you ever found things up their nose?
Yes. Yes, I have. And
you just look, give them a kiss on the cheek and you notice something, a Lego shoved up there.
Or what's wrong with you? What did you eat? Then of course, they eat everything, especially when they're in the crawling phase. If it's on the floor, it's going in the mouth. So it was like a hospital for many years in my home. Not
every kid, but some kids,
just mine.
They'll put anything. They see a bug, goes in their mouth.
Everything.
Doesn't matter.
They don't discriminate. If it's there,
I had one kid, Joel, that ate carpet lint. I don't know why. It's the worst thing you could ever have in your mouth, the lint.
Yeah. That is odd. I've not heard that one before.
Yeah.
The carpet lint. That's a new one on me.
Yep.
But I digress.
Keep going.
You are familiar with Hannah Montana, right?
Sure.
Right? The little pop princess, Yeah. Well, back in the day, she was a Disney kid. We know her now from screaming on a wrecking ball and going crazy, doing all that stuff. But back then, she was wholesome, and they were selling, with her name on it, some questionable toy items. And this one, of course, is none other than there's asbestos in there. But here's the deal. And lead. That was the biggest offender, was the lead. The lead was 40 parts per million in this toy.
And what is it?
Well, what it is it's a Hannah Montana toy. And it's a tablet. And it's something you can write on and have fun with. But it was kind of like one of those things you'd shake when you're done with it, kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, only a little bit cooler. And they did some tests on it, some independent tests, and they found that the things that they're writing with, the thing that's sticking, is actually lead that's inside of there.
Ah, okay.
It's a lead-based toy. Well, you can't have little Billy or Jody or whoever. You cannot have them playing a lead there, Doug.
But Joel, did you ever break apart an Etch-a-Sketch? I did.
I did, and you know what that is? I think it's magnetite that's in there.
No, I think it's aluminum powder.
Is that what you think that is?
Yeah, it's aluminum powder, I think. I don't know. God knows how much
I'll
I
have to look
played
into
with
that. What's inside that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
but
probably something horrible.
Every Etch-a-Sketch in my household eventually was broken, probably on purpose.
To see how it works.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
You got to see what it does.
Everybody wanted to see the levers, the XYZ levers.
I did too. I want to see how it worked, or what was the magnet, the way it would make the shape, stuff like that. I correct
myself. The XY, how it did the XY.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. But
now this
probably
one,
not good.
This one I have had around my house, and I remember vividly seeing this toy around my home. Aquadots. Aquadots hopefully was is the key phrase here, was a popular toy with small little beads that they could take, and play with, and it was more for like in the bathtub, stuff like that.
Oh.
Well, the problem is it seems kind of harmless, right? I mean, it's a harmless play toy.
Are those things that swell up?
Yeah, they kind of swell up, and they're kind of they're like little beads, and they stick together, stuff like that. But the problem is with it is the aqua dots by themselves is fine, as long as you don't eat them. When you eat them, the body metabolizes the aqua dot, and it becomes GHB, better known as the date rape drug.
Oh, no.
So these kids, God, I feel bad for them and their families, were ingesting these aqua dots because a lot of kids were thinking, oh, this looks like candy. Let's see how it tastes. Well, they would find them just kind of laying around all lethargic because they're all geeked out on the date rape drug.
God, I never heard that one. That's scary.
And it's not until your body processes it. Then it becomes the GHB. Because it's not in it. It just becomes that way.
So how did you know about these aqua dots again?
Well, having children.
Oh.
Young children.
So you gave them this.
No. I never advised them to eat them, and I do not believe, to the best of my knowledge,
But you supplied them.
I did. I did supply them. You're not wrong.
Let's just leave it there and move on.
Let's not incriminate me any more than we need to tonight. Let's see. Let's get a little more interesting one. Number 8. Lawn darts. Come on, Doug. That's got to be... Come on, you love the lawn darts. I did.
Played lawn darts hundreds of times with my neighbors. By the way, it was one house away. So we would fling these things from his yard to my yard. And we'd have like 20 kids on one side, 20 on the other.
Throw lawn darts at each other.
Yeah, these giant 1-pound lawn darts. And then there was another brand that came out. I think it was called Jarts.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
So these lawn darts, though, they're steel. I mean, the original lawn dart was heavy and it was steel. And most kids have sharpened the edges because they used to come kind of rounded, the edges at one point.
Well, we never did.
Well, they'd sharpen them to really get the effect into the ground, right? Well, so they had to take them off the market because kids were impaling each other with them.
Well, yeah. I mean, we would throw those things 50 feet in the air, and they'd come down, and if they were to hit you, and we all knew they would kill you.
You all knew it was just accepted risk.
But that's why we played them. There's no doubt. We knew the danger. We enjoyed it. The parents didn't say nothing.
Was it the danger that made it so fun?
I think it was. But
it had to have been.
I don't remember one time any parents ever going, gee, you shouldn't throw those lawn darts at each other. Nobody ever said anything. Different time. Oh, my God.
If you can dodge a lawn dart, you can.
It's like...
You got her made.
Oh, my God.
You got the world by the tail at that point.
If you think it was bad, Joel, when you grew up, oh, my God, it was way worse when I grew up.
I was given, in 1989, I'll never forget this, I was given for Christmas by a family member, unwrapped in front of God and everybody, a .357 Magnum revolver. Just whoop, there it is. I mean, it's beautiful. Smith & Wesson, beautiful revolver.
And you were how old?
I was 14, 15.
Oh, that's a great age to give somebody.
It's a great age to give somebody a handgun. Number one.
Was it loaded when you got it?
Well, it ain't no good if it ain't loaded.
It sounds like something Rodney Dangerfield would get for his birthday.
So here I'm looking at this weapon, this gun, and I've got thoughts of just fun. Like, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to shoot some really cool stuff with
back up, Joel. You always got to back up.
I do. Well, I have to fill in the blanks,
Who gave you this gift?
Who gave you this gift? To be completely honest, my father did. God bless his soul.
God bless him.
My mother had no idea that he was giving me a handgun for Christmas.
And?
Like, it was completely out of the blue. Here, open this up. It was heavy.
And did you get training? Did he have you trained?
I did. After that, he took me out. He trained me. I actually got very proficient with it. And I still, actually, it's a lesson I still use this day. I am a gun owner, and several, in fact.
Okay, we're off topic. We're talking about toys.
We're way off topic. Okay, now this one is kind of the reason why I brought it up. This next toy kind of ties into the 357 Magnum, the Austin Magic Pistol.
Oh my God, I remember those.
The BB guns were toys. I mean, Red Ryder BB guns. You've seen A Christmas Story. You're gonna shoot your eye out. It was more of a toy than anything else.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The name your price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
If you've got a personal auto insurance question, you could talk to a cab driver. Although the policies he recommends might include avoiding the interstate, beating traffic by taking the back roads, and only making left turns when absolutely necessary. Or you could talk to your local Geico agent, whose policy is to use their expertise to navigate your insurance, finding the best route to help you save money on insurance for your home, car, and more. And as an added bonus, you'll be able to avoid traffic jams and potholes entirely. To find a Geico agent near you, visit geico.com/local.
Not this one. This was a major thing going on. It took something special to stand out back then, and the Austin Magic Pistol definitely did that. It was gas-powered combustion, shooting a large plastic projectile up to 70 feet away at high speed. But here's the deal. The combustion was calcium carbide. And once you introduced water to the calcium, boom, it would blow up. So kids are running around the neighborhood with their Austin Magic Pistols, shooting each other. Well, what could possibly go wrong with that?
If people want to see really interesting videos, go to YouTube, type in the calcium carbide, and there's bunches of people that made videos of them throwing volumes amount into the lake or, into a pool. Or it's quite interesting.
I bet it is.
Fire and water, man. Fire and water.
Did you ever want to own one?
No. Nope.
No?
I had no interest in that one.
This one probably would have interested a young Doug Hajicek.
Well, I did things like I would do a lot of things with magnesium, certain other things, and I would collect.
It does burn quite hot.
Hydrogen and things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this would have been right up your alley. This last one.
That one actually scared me.
The gun did?
My older brother played with it quite a bit. He would like make what he would call a ray gun. He would make up one of these guns, but he would make his own. And then he would sell it to some poor kid and tell him it was a ray gun and rip him off. He'd sell it for their allowance or whatever. And and sometimes he would sell things that didn't work, but then people would believe him that they did. They would have some kind of a target set up that some kid would yank down with a string and say, "Oh yeah, this is a secret ray gun." Then they'd sell it,
and they'd buy it off of them.
Yeah, I grew up with two older brothers that were really into chemicals.
Really? So did any of them become chemists later on in life?
My oldest brother actually ended up having a whole bunch of patents. Yep.
Really?
Yep, quite a few.
See, look, he was an inventor.
Yeah.
Before his time.
Stuff. Did a lot of software and artificial intelligence work, and
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. But anyhow,
this last one is the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab. Now this might have been a Doug Hajicek right down the alley right there.
I wanted one.
You did?
Oh gosh, yes.
Well,
that was way out of my parents' budget.
This one though is special. This just wasn't any little old lab. This one came with uranium, like actual uranium. And not only did it come with uranium, but it came with order forms to order more uranium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you could just keep buying uranium and having it shipped to your house.
Yeah. Or uranium ore.
Yeah. And as potassium nitrate was in there. Wow. All sorts of just goodness. Wow, man.
Isn't it just amazing?
All this stuff is just potassium nitrate, which is a component of gunpowder. Yep. My gosh. And
I still have some old Gilbert toys, and they were all dangerous.
Each and every one of them.
They made a slot car in the 60s. You know, one of these little race cars, electronic race cars.
Yeah.
That would then break apart into a million pieces. They were razor sharp.
Oh my God.
I mean, some of them were sharper than razor blades.
And that would be flying at people.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, in my opinion, Gilbert made some pretty junky.
Yeah. It sounds like they put some thought into their old atomic energy lab, though.
Yeah, but they're that's high. I'm sure you can buy it on eBay.
And makes you wonder how many kids develop cancer later on in life because of their exposure to this. Uranium. You know they had to take that uranium and put it in their pockets and run around with it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there could have been.
You know, stuff like that. But just little strange things. Now, you said after we're done the list, and this is the last one on the list, what did you have growing up?
Is that the best you can come up with, Joel?
That's the best. That's the best at this list.
Really?
This is TakeJusticeBack.com.
Oh my God. Okay. So, to me, the number one most dangerous toy ever developed was the Whammo air gun in the 60s.
I've heard of them.
Okay, so what it was basically a jet chamber where it would compress air, but in order to do that, it had a big rubber diaphragm that would pull back by a hook, and it would pull this big rubber diaphragm back, and in the middle was a piece of metal with a little U thing where the hook could come and grab it, and you would cock it with literally all your might. Well, of course, how long would it be until you put a pencil in there?
It sounds like Doug put a pencil in there.
Oh, my God, every day. It would shoot pencils, ballpoint pens. Oh, and then, of course, you graduate to sharpening sticks, bigger and bigger sticks. Oh, my God. It was terrible. It's basically a crossbow.
So I'm sure that was not advised for you to do. I'm sure in the packaging they probably said somewhere, hey, don't be putting anything other than what it came with.
Oh, of course. The warning. Oh, and that, of course, you read that and go, oh, good idea.
How long did it take you before you graduated to missiles?
Oh, my God. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
I remember the what was the more dangerous ones? It was the hydro rocket, whereas water powered.
Yeah. You pumped it
you just
water.
Keep pumping it.
Yeah,
pumping
but if you were looking down at the rocket and it took off.
Yeah, because it made you stand over the rocket to pump it.
Yeah.
So once in a while there'd be a misfire.
Yeah.
Someone's eating a rocket.
Well, okay, I want to go back to the Whammo air gun. Whammo.
Okay.
This air gun was so cool, though. I mean, you could literally shoot a blast of air at somebody. You could feel it was like an orb of air. It was cool.
Good Lord.
But
wow.
But then later on, Whammo decided to put some kind of plastic screen, so you couldn't put pencils and pens and.
They took away the destructive
Then the air pressure went away.
Yeah.
So it was safer, and it didn't work.
You know who got involved in that? A lawyer did.
Oh God.
You know that. You know, it was lawsuits is why they.
You should have seen the holes in my bedroom wall.
I bet. I bet. I could just imagine.
There's no problem. You just hang a picture over it. You know.
Are you saying that your parents are none the wiser that they bought you a dangerous?
No, they never knew.
They didn't care, did they?
Heck no.
As long as you're out there,
they knew, they didn't care.
Yeah, that is true.
Go outside and play with that.
Yeah. We got that a lot.
Yeah, that might be what.
But one of them we didn't mention on here was number 7, and I kind of
you
was looking at it. The mini hammock. Well, the reason why I didn't bring it up is because people were putting their small children in the mini hammock, and they would strangle in the mini hammock.
Yeah.
So it's not really the toy's fault. It's more the bad parenting's fault.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know whether to bring that up or not because really it's a parenting issue and not a toy issue.
Well,
you know, that's
look,
them.
I can top the Whammo air gun.
How?
With what? Easy. So whoever wrote that article, I missed out on all the good ones. I mean, the heck with the uranium ore. That's nothing. Okay, they had these. Oh, they actually had. I had two highly dangerous toys. One was a vacuum form machine where a hot plate would heat up to 350 degrees.
Say what?
That'd take the flesh right off you.
Oh my God.
And it did. I don't know how many times I was burnt by that thing, but it was cool. I mean, it worked really well, and you could vacuum form, and I learned a lot about plastics when I was a kid.
Sure.
But it didn't come without the price.
I bet not.
Yeah.
I know I was given a chemistry set when I was a kid that actually had hydrochloric acid and all that stuff in it. And my gosh, did I have acid burns?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, fluoric acid, hydrochloric acid. It was the real stuff.
Yeah.
And then
but
you
could
can
you
mix
burn your
stuff.
house down with it?
You could.
And maim your face.
You could. Yeah, it was an actual working chemistry set.
Gosh.
And I made a bomb inadvertently one time with it. And that did not turn out all that great.
Look, I purposely did not want that toy. I remember him because I witnessed my brothers playing with this crap. I could see the tree stump disappearing. Those guys were really into, little.
I didn't have a big brother to watch maim himself on this stuff. I only had sisters growing up, and they were into Barbies.
Yeah.
So all the dangerous stuff my friends had. And it looked fun.
Joel.
It looked fun.
Swear to God, I put Barbies in the Whammo air gun.
You were shooting Barbies?
Oh, absolutely. Get a hold of your sister's Barbie doll, shove it in there, and shoot it at her.
But do you remember when you get potato guns?
Yeah, yeah.
Those could cause some real problems.
How were they pumped up? Was that CO2 they used?
Yeah, it was. The first one I had was an air compressor. You went to your dad's air compressor, and you filled it up like a tire almost. And when it was done, there's a little meter on it. When it was done, you could go shoot it. Well, this thing would shoot a potato. Oh my God. Because what you would do is you would overcharge it. You just keep going and going and going and going. And when you shot that thing, I remember I shot a potato right through a car window. Right through it. Shattered the rear window right now. A million pieces. That potato.
With a potato.
Yep. With a potato.
Should have used
mashed
mashed
potatoes.
I
realized, no, we didn't use mashed. No, that'd be a shotgun if you use mashed potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
You just get the russet reds are the best because they're kind of smaller and more compact.
Yeah.
So you can really get a trajectory on those.
Are you trying to encourage our listeners to?
No, I'm just saying that they used to sell those.
Well, I used to make other kinds of projectile shooters. I'm not even going to say what it was and how well it worked. But man, we could.
That was commercially available, the potato shooter.
No, we made our own.
Okay, you went off the books.
Well, yeah, we could shoot stuff almost a mile.
Damn.
And of course, as a kid, you're thinking nothing about where it's going to land.
Yeah, you don't think about the collateral damage that might occur.
Oh, no.
You
just shoot it and it's gone.
It's gone. It's out of your head, Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't anything heavier. We would shoot things that were pretty safe, but still could cause an accident.
High pressure water cannons. I remember getting those air powered again. Pneumatics were a big deal in the toy world for a little while.
Pneumatics. Yeah, don't they have air hogs now?
Yeah, air hogs, stuff like that.
Do they still have
that? They do. They do. Right now they do, but who knows? It may change any given moment, depending upon which children hurt themselves with it.
Yeah.
Because lawyers, they get involved, they take away all the fun. Like always.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Insurance companies. Well, that is the dangerous toys there, Doug.
Getting to the bottom of the hour.
Getting to the bottom of the hour. Get out of here. We're going to be giving John a call here. And we're going to be moving on some true crime. But those are your dangerous toys for right now. We may revisit the list if I can find more deadly toys. A list of the really good stuff.
Oh, I know more.
We'll be right back. I know you do. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know,
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now. Devil in Disguise. Only on Peacock. Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hajicek. And we are back at you with a few more dangerous toys that we did not grab. And no honorable mentions. And Doug brought to my attention that there are more that we should be talking about that are deadly.
Yes. Dart guns.
Exactly.
The old dart guns that you could take the suction cup off, put it in a pencil sharpener or whatever, get your whittle knife, cock it back in, and I'm telling you, these things were, back in the old days, they were powerful.
Let's see. John, are you with us?
I am. Hello.
There he is. Perfect.
John.
Just got you hooked up. John, welcome to Untold Radio.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be your host. You already know Doug. I'm Joel, by the way. We kind of hooked you up late a little bit. We were on a break, so we're actually live right now talking to everybody. And our first half hour, maybe you could chime in before we get to the gruesome stuff, which I enjoy true crime a lot with missing people. Very excited to talk with you. What was the deadliest toy that you ever owned, John?
I would say the deadliest toy I ever owned was probably a trash bag. Because do you remember the little army men that you could throw up in the air and then they had a little parachute?
I do.
Yeah. So I always thought about, I could do that too. Like I could just take a trash bag and make a little parachute and then jump off my roof. And
like you yourself physically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
man, didn't work so good.
I was gonna say
you didn't scale it up. You didn't scale it up enough, John.
No, I don't think so.
John, the question of the day is, did you stick the landing?
I didn't do too bad on the landing. Thankfully, no bones were broken. But I just crushed my dream of parachuting off the roof.
Man, I think I tried that once because I thought I was going to try it. My mother stopped me with a cape. I was just little. I'm going to try this. I see Superman doing it on TV all the time. Let's give this a whirl. No, I'm glad she stopped me because, gravity is not my friend.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too as a kid, that the cape was part of what made them fly. Yeah.
Yep. If you had the cape, you're golden. But sadly, that's not true. That's just not true. Well, John, welcome to the show, like I said. And you got a lot of stuff going on. BrainScratch. I was gorging on your videos today. And I was really impressed with the quality of your work, the people you're helping. Because you're also putting a searchlight out for missing people, like people that are actually active cases. And I found that to be very intriguing because you don't see that a lot. With true crime, you get after the fact mostly. You don't get a lot of as it's happening. I want, tip of the hat to you because you're actually proactively trying to help people too. Rather than just telling a tale, you're actually trying to be part of the recovery of them. What got you into that portion of that?
It was a specific, I kind of got into looking into unsolved mysteries a little bit and even pushing into the fringe, but just looking to create a different story or look into a different event every week. I started covering missing persons cases, and there was one that I covered in particular, the Brandon Lawson case, and it's just a very bizarre occurrence. And after I put out a video on it, I was contacted by his family. And I was nervous because I hadn't spoken to them before I did any of the production or anything like that. I mean, I was kind of just growing out of only having a few thousand subscribers. And I was very used to I'm going to research this case myself. I'm going to pull together all the different information sources and try to make one cohesive story out of this. And I wound up talking to his common-law wife at the time. Her name was Ladessa. She had several kids with Brandon, and I was terrified to call the number back, but I did, and she was just so thankful. And then Brandon's father got on the phone and started telling me how much he appreciated that someone out there cared, that someone was doing all this work. He couldn't believe all the details I was able to pull together. His voice, he's literally breaking up and crying as he's telling me this stuff. And at that point, something in me shifted where it was like, okay, I need to keep doing missing persons cases and get as many done as I can. So I kind of broke that off from my main BrainScratch show. I left that still for unsolved mysteries, but if it was a missing persons case, I was going to cover that on a new show called Searchlight. And what I found as I started doing that and getting more and more into that is there's a lot of cases out there that don't get good coverage. There's a lot of cases. There's kind of this old belief structure. Thankfully, I'm starting to see it change, particularly this year. But there's this kind of old belief structure that major media will only cover it if it is a 16-year-old white blonde girl with blue eyes. And look at the media. It's absolutely true. Those cases just get national level exposure, huge exposure. And then there's other cases where you don't get that exposure. People of color, people that have drug addictions, people that might be into sex work. There's just these certain categories where major media will look the other way. And that's where I really started. It's weird because it's kind of a balance. I need to keep the channel healthy and popular. So, with BrainScratch, every now and then I'll look into kind of bigger, more well-known mysteries to keep the audience coming in. But as soon as I've got their attention, I'm really trying to drive them towards those stories that no one is talking about, that no one's hearing about.
Has the Searchlight really become your passion? Like you said, I mean, the BrainScratch brings them into the seats, something different. Like one of them I watched was the Great Lakes Triangle. That's definitely, for me, was clickbait because I live in Minnesota. So I'm like, oh, I got to check that out. But what got me, though, the big hook was when I started watching the Searchlight stuff. So would you say that that's the seat filler where the Searchlight is the substance?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I'm still passionate about BrainScratch. There's things that I've looked into there. I mean, the case I'm most well known for is the Elisa Lam case, which was out of Los Angeles, girl that goes missing. It starts as a missing persons case, but and that's kind of important to remember because so many of these missing persons cases, a lot of them are homicides that haven't been identified yet, or other situations, people taking their own lives and things like that. So there's still a component to following those stories through. And I've had stories that start on Searchlight and then we make a discovery about where the body is and, there's 2 gunshots. Okay, this is now a murder investigation. Yeah. And we will kind of roll it over to BrainScratch and pick it up there. So they work hand in hand, but and I've been thanked by families that I'm covering unsolved murders of, and I've had very tough but super fulfilling interviews with some of these family members on the channel as well. But there's just something about realizing that the people that are stuck not knowing where their missing loved one is are in like a void. They're in this spot where they don't know what the reality is, so they can't face it. And that's almost worse because at that point, they're going into their own situation. They're going through every different nightmare scenario that you can imagine. And some of them are just cycling through those, like on a daily basis, every day, just firing through all these different situations. So one of the big things that I did pretty early on, I had a suggestion from a very smart community member, and that's part of it too. Like, I really believe in YouTube as a tool for bringing a community together and then making this world a better place. And I had someone that said, there's no like rule book or like, here's what you need to do if you have a missing family member out there. Could you put something like that together? So I made a website it's brainscratchers.com. And the biggest feature that I push people there for is the missing person tips. And it's a page I put together. I've got several videos there. I went searching for all the different kind of best practices that I could find. I've got them all drilled down to that one place. And I've been very thankful to be able to do that and be in a situation where I can help pull that together. And once again, I'm hearing from people in cases that I've covered where they're like, hey, by the way, I didn't know you at all, but I went looking for what do I do if I have a missing loved one? And I found your webpage. And then I found out about you. So
what are some of the misconceptions? You have someone in your life that's missing. Do you have to wait the traditional 24 hours to call the police? Is that a thing?
Oh, boy. No, boy.
Things like that. I used to do a true crime podcast with a forensic psychologist that worked in San Quentin prison. And that was a question we had multiple times. How long should I wait when my loved one's gone missing? And is there a waiting period? I don't believe there is there?
No, and law enforcement will tell you, well, it's interesting because you could go into the police station and say, yeah, my sister's missing. I don't know where she is. And there's a very high percentage that you'll hear, well, has it been 48 hours yet? And, we can't really fill this out until it's 48 hours. That is generally not true. And it's weird because, we've got a lot of police departments that operate in very different ways in this country. I still don't know why. I wish we could kind of level that out a little bit. But in general, no, that's not true. So if you hear that at the front door, ask for a supervisor, push beyond that. When you get to investigators that are actually working these cases and you see them interviewed talking about it, they'll be very clear with you. The earlier, the better. The sooner we know about it, the better. So it's weird that you kind of have that. And it's a huge misconception. It's something that's kind of been put out there with all the not true crime, but the crime television shows and stuff like that that we have in popular culture. And it kind of bled into a belief structure that is just, absolutely not true. Now, it's interesting because so many cases do get solved kind of on their own. Like we're talking more than 95%. So they're taking a lot of reports that ultimately they're not going to have to do much action on. And within 48 hours, that person's going to come back. It's really the smaller percentage that's left after that, the cases that go to, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to start looking at things different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And,
John, how many people actually go missing in that 10% category per year in this country? Do you even have an idea?
Well, if I remember right, I think there's like 600,000 cases, missing persons reports that are essentially taken. And I'm being pretty conservative on the 95. I've seen some statistics that go as high as 98% of those cases will essentially solve themselves. So, 600,000, take the remaining 2% out of that. And that's what you're talking about on a national kind of very gross, average. But
is that I can't do the math. Is that 3,000 people or 30,000?
30,000. Well, let's see, 600,000. Let's say,
or no, 12,000.
I'm terrible. Now you got me.
2% would be 12,000 people. That's still a huge amount of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not easy cases. They're not easy cases to work. There's a lot of them where you run into this other kind of bizarre condition with.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.
Police that are not necessarily recognizing that it's an endangered situation. And that's one of the frustrations I have with law enforcement working in such different ways all across this country. Some of them have criteria where they say, okay, person's missing. She left behind her purse. She left behind her car keys. Her car's still here. She's not touching her accounts. She left behind her medication. We know that that's a dangerous situation. We're going to categorize this as an endangered case. You've got other places where they have the exact same conditions and they won't flag it as an endangered case. So it's kind of tough that from area to area, you're really dealing with different rules in terms of how to progress these things.
And one thing I've noticed is that, how do I put this really easily, really nicely? Because I think it's a really big injustice to all of us that police, law enforcement officials in different counties or jurisdictions are not the greatest at communicating with each other of what's going on. And that has been a huge issue throughout the years, especially like when you have someone like the freeway killer out there that's driving state to state, killing people. We're getting away with it for the longest time because these agencies, there's no database that they want to go into and look at and compare notes.
Right.
I wonder why that is. What is that roadblock?
Well, there's kind of a culture, at least as I understand it, of almost like ownership. Like, this is our territory, that's your territory. And those gaps, you're right, they create kind of these pockets where these cases can get dropped or missed. I mean, if you have someone that goes missing here in Minnesota and they've been transported, or their body has been transported out of the state, and then it winds up somewhere else and it's not found until it's been skeletonized, good luck getting that matched back to the original case. Thankfully, I believe it was around 2008, the Department of Justice kind of took on this initiative of trying to handle that. And they did start a national database that is called NamUs, it's kind of interesting that this is coming up right now, because there's some challenges that are going on with NamUs. But the main purpose of NamUs is to try to collect all those records, get all the missing persons reports, and then they have another database where they're tracking unidentified bodies that have been found. And then they're trying to match those records up. So, if you have someone like a body that's found that's a certain height, sex, and then was found in a particular time frame, you can search that same information on the missing persons profiles and go, oh, look, there's 20 people that might actually match that. And then further, NamUs will actually do some level of DNA testing to make a final confirmation on that. And the great thing about it is you can be just a concerned citizen to enter a record in NamUs. There's been several states that have taken on initiatives where they're actually tasking law enforcement with being sure to enter those records in a NamUs, which is kind of a big challenge. I mean, if you have this database and no one's feeding it. The current challenge with NamUs is they're going through some funding issues with the National Institute of Justice and the University of North Texas that usually maintains it, which takes a lot of work because, think you've got someone like me that's like, okay, I see this case isn't in NamUs, I'm going to enter it there. They have employees that will reach out to the law enforcement agency and clear up the record, like make sure, okay, is this information accurate? Is there information in here that we don't want to release publicly? Because I've seen that where there's records that I go to enter and they're like, no, law enforcement's blocking it from being posted. And then 2 weeks later, we see that the body's been found and they're pressing charges. So there's a lot of administrative work kind of on the back end of that database. And University of North Texas has been handling that this whole time. I guess they didn't get enough money from the National Institute of Justice. And now there's some question about who's going to be managing it going forward. But it's such an important...
ridiculous.
I know.
I mean, it's such a big tool and it's so powerful, or could be, that it's just ridiculous not to want to fund that. You would think on a federal level, they would be just feeding it with money to keep it going.
Well, and that's the thing.
Help this done.
There is. I mean, they do have money, but, basically the University of North Texas is saying it's not enough. Like, we can't keep this thing afloat with the amount that you guys are giving us. And I don't know if that means that the DOJ is going to move it into, because I know that they've got the private law enforcement databases that they use, like NCIC. I don't know if they're going to try to move it closer to those services and have the same people try to manage it or something along those lines. But the true crime community that I'm involved in, everyone's just freaking out. Like, any risk to NamUs, it's like, why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to not expand the tool. It doesn't need to be retracted. It needs to be expanded. And, because it's only going to help. Because a lot of people have a lot of information they could put in there. Like a witness. If a witness saw something happen, they could add that to NamUs and have that in the database. Am I correct? Like evidence could be entered, statements could be entered.
Well, I mean, that's what it's there because you want the records available. So, like, if someone like me is looking at a case, NamUs is a great spot where I'm going to find out all the basics of the case, and it's going to have the contact information for law enforcement. It's going to have the case number. There's a lot of things that I've learned about in terms of covering these types of cases that are important pieces of information. I've called police about certain cases and mentioned the person's name, and they're just like, who? Like, what? What are you talking about? So, I learned very early on, get those case numbers in my videos. Always have them in the description box, because if anyone needs to call the law enforcement, case number is going to help them get that information in the right place. NamUs doesn't quite have the social aspect that you're talking about, but I can totally see it growing in that direction. But there's still the case managers. So if you did have information, you could find the law enforcement contact there. If you felt like that wasn't enough, you can contact the case manager and also shoot it into them. So, and sometimes, hitting multiple channels especially with a missing persons case, is a good way to go. Just get those tips in every which way you can.
Sounds good. Sounds really good.
So, I mean, not only with missing people, but in murder cases, the funding, I mean, and the manpower.
Yeah.
It's got to be astronomical, but isn't it kind of sad as a society? We have, no doubt, in every city, thousands of cold cases that just had to be passed by for new ones. It just seems...
It is. Especially Doug, with the past developments of the past few years with genetic genealogy solving so many of those cases. There was a podcast that I worked on called 3 Men and a Mystery. And the first season we looked into a case and we knew there was DNA in that case. And it was a case that it's 20 years old. And we're like, okay, what do we have to do? Like, do we need to raise the money and then offer it to the police? Like, how do we make this happen? We reached out to Parabon Nanolabs, a company that's, really a leader in this right now, solving so many of these cases. We learned from them that, we're looking at like $5,000 to $7,000 for this type of testing. We're like, okay, we're going to try to get sponsors, or we're going to try to do fundraising, whatever. And we were reaching out to law enforcement, and that's been the biggest challenge. And I talk with people about this all the time, trying to get cooperation with law enforcement, especially with this social media layer, very difficult still. And I don't know how many different success stories we need or what for that to break. But it's really, really tricky. So we were doing everything: phone calls, emails, snail mail, just lighting up that department saying, you need to do this one particular thing. If you need the money, we're going to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And we started production on the podcast. We started actually recording episodes. And before we even got to release the first one, all of a sudden they announced that there was an arrest. They basically announced that they had done what we were suggesting. The mayor wound up giving the money to get the testing done. And now a guy. So yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling when you're talking about situations like that. And I understand $5,000 to $7,000 it's a lot of money, but for a police budget and to solve a case that your whole community has been hung up on for 20 years, 2 teenage girls killed, shot, left in the trunk of one of their cars. I mean, put up that money, figure out where to get it from.
It isn't just solving that case. It's catching the person who may be continuing to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So not only, to me, the money, it's sad it's not getting spent, because they can make a solid arrest. They may be preventing 20 other murders or missing people, which is going to save them money. To me, it would save them money in the long run.
That's a good point, Doug. And we're nowhere near that part of the conversation, like getting ahead, of actually addressing these things. And you've also got some challenges where I can't tell you how many cases I look into and it's like, wait, this suspect was arrested before, wait, this guy is known for choking previous wives, and like he's just skidding through the system, and he's just released after a month or two, and all of a sudden someone's dead a number of years later. And it's like, how many different warning indicators do we need here? How can we address this?
It's gotta be a better way. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is when a lot of times when they do, nowadays, if they do get DNA and they do the genealogy, they contact relatives in many cases as close as they can. And I would imagine they're going, do you have a crazy uncle? You know what I mean? And they're going, yeah, we do actually. We have some guys. Yeah. And then they point the detectives up there, and the next thing you know, I mean, there was a case like that Othram did the genetic studies, and they got a guy that had committed a murder 50 years ago. And they got him on one skin cell left on a bra.
Wow.
Just one 50-year-old one skin cell.
Yeah.
And so that's where the technology is going, but it costs money. Plus, the detective actually has to have time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing is there's more work that happens in the police unit after that. Like the genetic genealogy companies will come back and say, we've traced it down and we believe that it's this person, or we believe that it's someone in this set of cousins or something like that. And then it goes back to the department where they have to make a confirming match. So essentially they'll go and they'll try to reach out to that person and maybe ask for a DNA sample. Person will usually say no. Yep. And then all of a sudden they'll start following them around and looking for them to throw away a Sprite bottle or a napkin that they've used or something like that, and then collect it that way. So yeah, there's more footwork that happens for the police departments even after they get that answer, because then they need the one-to-one match so that they can actually run it through trial.
Yeah, and there's just it's amazing too how many departments aren't maybe up to speed on what can be done today.
And that's exactly what we felt like we were running into with that first season of Three Men. That, we're talking a smaller community, and do they even know about this level of technology? Right. Do they know that this case that they've been sitting on for 20 years could break with just a few $1,000s and some help? Yep. And thankfully they did. And, honestly, I do that show with a few other guys. We're still wondering. We don't know if it was our nudge that actually got them to move in the right direction. The official story from the police captain was, I heard about, the big case in California that was cracked using this stuff. So I decided to try to learn about it. We still don't know. Yeah.
The other problem is, well, go ahead, Joel. But
I was just gonna mention that DNA brought so many to justice now. Yeah, it's almost amazing that anyone will question it at all at this point. How powerful that is, and let money be that stumbling block.
Yeah, but it's interesting because we still haven't quite seen it like battled out in court. With the Golden State Killer, effectively he admitted to doing it. So there doesn't have to be a really hard trial, lawyers going against lawyers, experts going against experts. But there is something interesting, like this case that I'm talking about from Alabama, the first season of Three Men. Basically, they found the guy's DNA on some of one of the victim's clothing. And he's a black man. We're talking about two young white girls, and he was a little bit older than them at the time. We don't have the weapon. We're not getting a DNA match from the weapon. And with DNA being found in that location, like there's a possibility that what if this was a boyfriend of hers? What if this was something that was being kept a secret and, her friends didn't know about it or her family didn't know about it? So with that case in particular, I'm very curious to see what happens at trial because, yes, they found a DNA match. Obviously, we know that's the guy that made that sample, but it doesn't necessarily tie him to the crime yet. We could kind of assume that, okay, maybe this is a sexual assault situation.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word: crispy, but also juicy and tender. Okay, it's crispy, juicy, tender, all one word. But then also pickle. Oh, and potato bun, which is two words. Okay, we can't sum up our new crispy chicken sandwich in one word, so you'll just have to try it to understand it. Order ahead on the McDonald's app at participating McDonald's.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
But we don't know that for a fact. When the bodies were found, the girls were clothed.
Unless the DNA points to somebody who's got a violent history.
Sure.
Somebody was out of jail at that time or whatever. But then it's still circumstantial. I could still see a person winning in court.
That's what's interesting about it. Yeah, we need to see what happens in a few of these trials because yes, you're getting a strong indicator. We know that person has interacted with that person, but does that mean that they're the person that actually ended their life? It's a bit of a different question.
Well, it's also. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Joe. We got that darn delay. Have you ever fantasized or wondered what would happen if law enforcement required every single man, woman, and child to donate DNA to a national bank.
Yeah. Well, and there's been some cases where, I don't know if here in the U.S., but I can think of one case in Australia in particular where they started going door to door. Like they were just like, we think it's someone from this particular neighborhood, and they did like thousands and thousands of tests. Oh. The truth that I believe in about DNA is, look at how that example I was giving you about them finding the one-to-one match. We're essentially leaving traces of that everywhere we go. Yeah. So the privacy around it, it's not like someone is coming into my office here and taking a sample from me in the middle of the night. You know, if I go out into the world and I drink a Sprite and I throw the bottle away, I'm discarding it. Someone else picks it up and they take a sample off that. So the privacy issues around DNA, I think they're changing. I know the companies have been pretty freaked out about it, like, you know, the 23andMe's and Ancestry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when a warrant comes to them, you know, they're going to serve up the information that's being looked for. Yeah. So it's, I don't know if we'll need to get to that point. I listened to some experts that were talking about this, and I think they said that if you can get a database of just, I believe they said 2 to 3% of a population,
really,
that would solve, that would solve effectively 98% of the crimes.
How many? What percent? 80%?
Yeah, well, it would solve 80 to 90% of the crimes with only a 2 to 3% sample of the population because of all the connectedness.
That's a powerful statement you just made.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Criminals beware in the future.
Yeah, right.
How many hours, John? John, do you spend on just an average case? How many man hours? I know it's a lot.
Yeah, there's kind of there's different approaches that I have for different stories, you know. The Searchlight cases that I'm covering, where it is someone that has a drug addiction or something like that, obviously there's not going to be a ton of media. I might reach out to some family. For the first episode, I really try to get like the media's version of what that story is, and then bring in the family information as a secondary, because I'm really trying to stick as close to the facts as possible. And family information can sometimes lean, depending on their beliefs, pretty hard in some cases. But for a Searchlight, you know, I'm looking at maybe 6 hours of research, an hour of filming, an hour of editing. I mean, it's a solid work day. If there's more communication that happens around that with a family, that can easily expand another, 4 to 6 hours, something along those lines. There's deeper dives that I do, like the Elisa Lam case. I mean, that wound up being 15 episodes. I don't even know how many hours.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that later on the interview, but I'd like to switch gears, maybe talk to you about a few cases that are actually out there. Like one of them is the Henry McCabe case. Doug brought this up to me doing pre-show prep. And I'd forgotten about this case.
It's the case where I discovered John, because he had done an amazing job, and he's got obviously opinions.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. Well, Henry, I had just moved out here from California, and I had been hearing about the Henry McCabe case, and it comes up frequently from David Paulides. He will kind of talk about this, and there is some tape that was kicked out through some local news agencies here of his last phone call. It's a voicemail left on his wife's phone, effectively. And the tape is it's disturbing. I mean, you listen to it and it sounds like growling and grunting, and you don't know what's happening. And quite honestly, it sounds like the man's being attacked. And, his body would eventually be found in a big water source out here. So I had come out here, I think I had just hit, like 10,000 subscribers or something. So I wanted to do something a little different, and decided that I was going to travel and kind of follow the footsteps of where he had gone. So I started at the bar that he was at. I went to there's two different gas stations where supposedly he was dropped off. So I went to both of those. I went to the water where he was found and just really tried to understand it and figure it all out. And it kind of, my fascination with it also ties to a theory that I had already been hearing about back in California and looking into, and that's the smiley face killer theory. Which effectively, if you don't know, there's two detectives from New York that kind of put this theory out about young, roughly college-aged men that were being found in bodies of water, and there are smiley face graffiti that are close to where these bodies are found. So they're assuming that it's some type of organization or some.
Yeah, I actually interviewed the FBI agents that were looking into it as well. That particular case, very, very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and before I was doing this kind of stuff, I was a data guy. Like I was an IT guy that was working in entertainment companies, and I was really interested to just learn more about the statistics of drownings, and especially young college-aged males. The stories always had this aspect of they were drinking, they might have been with friends early in the night, they separate from them, they disappear, they wind up in a body of water. And effectively, that's what happened with Henry as well. So it kind of lined up with that. Later, go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you make of the noises, though? I mean, if you had those analyzed, those noises at all, to see what the heck that was in the background? Because, I mean, it almost sounds demonic.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not, but I mean, it almost sounds that violently like somebody came and either they did him in or something happened. There's more to it than what's being told.
It was years later. Yeah. It was years after I had put those videos out when I was contacted by a friend of his. And his friend was also from Liberia. And he was saying that a lot of the things that people weren't able to make sense out of in terms of what Henry was saying were actually not in English. And that it was almost like him calling out to God or like saying, oh my God, like these different kind of expressive terms that you would use, but he was using a different language. So that friend actually sent me the full tape. And the full tape is a bit different than the version that we've heard in the news and the version that David Paulides has run over and over. That version has been edited and is putting together two distinct different times where he's making some very strange sounds, but you don't know that they're actually separated from each other pretty considerably in the tape. And there's a lot of additional talking and dialogue that's in between that. I still don't understand all of it. I tried to get approval to publicize that because there's so many people. Like I'm still seeing YouTubers that are covering it going, this is the creepiest thing you've ever heard. And I wish I could put the full one out there because it's like, when you hear it in this context.
Why can't you? I mean, in the public interest. What could happen?
It was really a choice that I made because of there's no right person to get the approval from. The friend, I was basically asking him, talk to Henry's wife and see if this is okay. I think it's important that we get this out.
Yeah. Well, sure.
And it didn't happen. And unfortunately, I know that there's a new podcast that's making a run at, Henry's wife is like being a part of this. And, they're throwing a lot of grief her direction that, once again, if that tape would just go out, I think it would just fall to the wayside. And we know that obviously the news agencies got some form. I don't know if it was already edited before they got it or if they cut it down to that version. But I don't know. I'm still hoping.
Who was he calling out to when he said, "Stop it"? I mean, it sounded like he was talking to another person.
Yeah, but there's a lot of like. This is going to turn into a bit of a personal question. You guys ever been really sad and drunk and walking around at night and just talking to the sky? Just angry about something?
Just venting your grievances to whoever would listen.
That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like he's actually talking to another person, but the phone at some point is in his pocket. So I know there's some people that theorize, oh wait, there's another voice that you can hear in there. There's a lot of extra noise that's going on with that. And when you hear it in the context of the whole thing, it just really does sound like this guy was really, really drunk, very, very upset. And I think he was going through a separation. He had just caught some grief at work. There's a lot of things that weren't kind of going great for him at that time. And unfortunately, look at the statistics around the smiley face killer theory. Oh, yeah. I mean, they've pulled together 40 different cases of young men that go walking off and wind up in water. And if you look at the CDC, it's one of their major risk factors. People that are drunk, that age, going walking alone. And it's not just here. It's nationwide. They've got a version of this in England of the smiley face killer theory, but they call him the pusher because people wind up in the canals. But it's ultimately, just a sad, tragic thing. And I get caught up on, we've got a couple of detectives trying to sell a book that have put this theory together. There's a very important, real conversation that we have to have about this, and we need to make public as well. And that is, if you go out with your friends and you're 21, 22 years old and you don't know your limits yet, don't leave your friends, Yeah. Because that's what all these stories have. And even if it is, let's push it out to, maybe there is some handbook on the internet somewhere that's saying, here's how to kill someone. Wait until they're drunk and alone and push them into a body of water. It's still that condition. Don't be drunk and alone. The Claremont killings in Australia, the girls, same situation. All these girls going out in packs. They know that they should do that to be safe. But then one of them pulling away from the pack, oh, I'm just going to go home. I'm just going to get a cab. Next thing, they're going into some other guy's car. They don't realize it's not a cab, and they wind up dead. So it's that's where I struggle a little bit with kind of the creepy storytelling aspect of some of these cases. And honestly, that's what started BrainScratch for me with the Elisa Lam case. It was the same thing.
But, ultimately, we are responsible for our own safety. Because if you're not going to take your safety seriously, why should I?
Yeah.
And if you know these are the risk factors, don't partake in them.
But that's the tough thing for me, Joel. Like you're talking, here we've got a drinking age of 21. So you're talking people in their very early 20s. But other parts of the world, you're talking 18 years old. I know I made mistakes around that age. And thankfully, I didn't have to pay with my life. It's just, there's something that really makes my heart heavy to think of a lot of these people not having a second chance.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. We've all done that stupid thing in that stupid moment. And we're all here to talk about it. And we're lucky because YouTube wasn't around yet and Facebook wasn't there to document our stupidity. But now it's everywhere worldwide.
Yeah.
Well, just one last thought on the Henry McCabe case. Because the news did not release the entire recording, did some editing, you can hardly blame people for going wild with their imaginations.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't blame David Platt. You can't blame anybody because that's all we had to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is sad that wasn't, once it became a thing, it was not released. And it'd be great if you could get it released at some point in the future.
I'm still hoping. I mean, look how long it took for that tape to show up in my lap. So yeah, I'm still hoping someday that they'll realize that maybe this new podcast will push her into making a different decision about it. I don't know, but there's a lot of people that cared about him, and I was moved that one of his friends would even reach out to me and try to clarify that stuff and then share that with me in that way. So I didn't, I wanted to do it right if I was going to release it.
Yeah.
If I was a different type of YouTuber, yeah, sure, I could put it out and I could, gain a bigger following. That's just not what I'm motivated by.
Well, the thing is, you did a better job, John, and you put it out into the public. It's a great example of what I wish the police would do.
Yes. Yeah.
That drives me nuts. I mean, they hold a press conference and they don't tell anybody anything, so nobody can help. But you went out there and you You went to each place. You described the area. You gave so much information on it. It was just amazing. And it's just sad that there isn't. I realize it takes time, but really, how long did it take you?
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, I was kind of, like I said, I don't do every case like that where I'm driving around to every place. It was a little bit of a special event, but, what is it, a week of work? And it's, another thing that I've found is part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to put the bigger story together, because a lot of the news agencies, you'll get like here's a 5-minute blurb on this channel. Here's a small written story over on this website. And sometimes they'll have different details across all those, and no one's really pulling it all into one.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, to your point about what the news did with editing that down to sound like the monster sounds happened back to back. Sometimes you look at certain news sources and you can trust them heavily, and sometimes you can't. And that even leans over into people's political affiliations. So with my videos, when I put them up, you're seeing the sources. Like I go do all the footwork. I go through everything that's out there. I drill it down to here's the different facts that are presented, but you're also seeing where they're coming from. So sometimes, you might see a source and go, I don't believe that one, but that's okay, because I know that little piece, and now I can carve out my believability on that one little piece, but listen to the rest and still form my own opinion.
Very few places or YouTubers or presenters or television, very few cite their sources.
Yes.
And that drives me wild. As someone that's in radio, I like to look at the source myself. I like to put it all together myself. I appreciate the fact that you cite sources, that you do that. It's almost like a Adam Ruins Everything episode. Like that show, and he kind of shows the sources and everything else. That's what's great about it, because then you can come up with your own conclusions, or maybe read it differently than anyone else did and get a little bit more out of that no one else looked at in a certain way. Yeah. So it's very important to have that source material to go back to.
That's John, what I'm hoping for.
Is there a case right now that you're working on that you want, like, our listeners to help with, one that you're passionate about?
Elisa Gomez.
Okay.
Without hesitation. Elisa Gomez. Elisa Gomez was an artist going to MCAD, finishing up a master's at MCAD. But she's also someone that looked for love her whole life. She had a couple kids, never quite found her way into the marriage. And she was doing so much. She was working so hard, all these different jobs. She loved animals, so she was watching dogs while she was going to school. Just someone, I can't believe the energy that this woman had. And she got a new car. And she decided, well, okay, now I've got this new car. Maybe I can kind of run like my own little Uber service. So she posted on Facebook and posted on Craigslist. And she's like, hey, if you want to get around, the cities at all, $10 one way. I'll take you where you need to go. So she started doing that, and she met a man named Brad. And they seemed to hit it off. And he was using her for the ride-sharing service, but they were kind of maybe being a little flirty. Within a couple of weeks, he's living in her house, and there's another roommate that they have named Sharon that's also living in the house. He's helping with the animal business. He's also fixing up some things around the house and trying to contribute in that way. He's not working at this time, so no significant money that he's bringing in or anything like that. They have a very fast and extremely passionate relationship, and they did a lot of texting because of her lifestyle. She's literally going from place to place to place. They're kind of sharing a car at this point, so if she needs him to pick her up, that's all in text. They fight in text. They love in text. Like, the texts show their whole relationship. October comes around, and Elisa Gomez, she's been talking to her family about the fact that she thinks she wants to marry Brad, but she's been telling her family that they're going to have a big wedding in April. October comes around and they get their marriage license. And the story that Brad gives is that the marriage license wasn't going to be valid for long enough to get them to their wedding in April. So Elisa and Brad decide to get married at the courthouse in October of 2016. Mm-hmm. So they do that. They go home that night. There's some celebrating, a little bit of drinking. She lives just 2 doors down from the Cedar Inn. They go to the Cedar Inn with her roommate, Sharon. There's footage of them at the inn. Seems to me in the footage that there's some disagreement that happens. It seems that Elisa leaves upset. Brad and Sharon follow her out a few minutes later. Mm-hmm. Next thing we know, somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning, neighbors that are 2 doors down from where they live call police and say, there's a couple that's outside. They're having this ridiculous, huge argument. They're yelling and screaming at each other. Can you have someone drive by? The police don't immediately respond. They do have someone drive by, but it's not until 25 or 30 minutes later. And this is Minneapolis 3rd Precinct. When they drive by, they don't see anyone outside fighting anymore, and they don't stop. They just kind of, okay, well, it looks like nothing's going on here, and they leave. Yeah. They don't stop at the house that actually made the call to talk to them. They don't stop at the house where the neighbors, I think they knew that it was Elisa and Brad and could have easily directed them to where the house was. I've personally made calls like that before, like, hey, there's a couple fighting. It sounds like it might be getting violent. And the police always checked in with me. So this is kind of weird for me to hear this condition. But so police drive by, nothing happens. Next morning, 911 call. Elisa is hanging in her basement bedroom, and she's dead. So the police show up. The front gate to her house has been all busted apart. There's a light that was on there that's been broken. Brad's phone is found in some neighbor's bushes a couple houses away. When they get downstairs, the dogs are protecting Elisa, essentially. And the first responders are nervous. They're like, oh my, I can't go in there. I can't get in there because of the dogs. But what they could see from the stairway is Elisa is not hanging at this point. Her body's on the ground, face forward, kind of slumped over this little step stool that she had next to her bed for the dogs to get up and down into her bed. And a purple scarf is hanging from the beam. A firefighter gets in there that feels more comfortable with the dogs. They get the dogs out and they start tending to Lisa, and she's gone. So this kicks off into a little bit of an investigation that happens. And what's interesting is we have ridiculous access to the police information in this case because her family kept pushing for all the records and literally fought for the records for a long time and got a considerable amount. So we produced the second episode of 3 Men and a Mystery about this case in particular, and we're literally showing the body cam footage as they're going downstairs. We've got the interviews with Brad, with Sharon. We've got those almost completely unedited. There's like some time gaps that I've taken out where no one's saying anything, but nothing serious. And Brad effectively gets everything that she owns because they're married for, 12 hours, 15 hours before she dies. Mm-hmm. So he crashes her car, starts partying in her house. House gets completely wrecked, like literally things just pulled out of all the cabinets, graffiti on the walls. And one of the things written on the walls is "Till death do us party."
Weird.
That is odd.
So, then we start learning about the social information. She was supposed to meet her daughter the next day for breakfast. Of course, the assumption from the investigation is she killed herself, that she ended her own life, which...
So let me stop you there just 1 second.
Yeah.
So that was the police conclusion that she had committed suicide?
It was the official conclusion that they would get to. I can tell you that with all that body cam footage, we can see that the early officers that are showing up, not the investigators, but like, the cops that show up, the first responders, they're all saying, well, not all of them, some specifically are saying, this is weird. This doesn't look right. This is very strange. I mean, consider this. The story is Brad isn't even the one that took Elisa down. So the story is Sharon is sleeping in her room. Brad pounds on the door, says, Sharon, Elisa's downstairs, and cut her down effectively. So her roommate goes downstairs, sees Elisa hanging from this rafter, supposedly, and uses fingernail clippers, which I still don't understand, to supposedly cut the scarf and get Elisa down. And the scarf, obviously a big focal point with all this because we've got pictures of it. It's not, I mean, you can see there's kind of a few holes in it, but it's not like any section of it has been cut. So somehow it's been unwrapped from Elisa and she winds up on the ground, but Brad's not the one that touched her. Sharon did all this. But the thing that gets me is just, why are you going to take someone down? Like if you go downstairs and you see someone is hanging and their life is pretty obviously over, and I've seen the autopsy photos. I've seen photos from the scene as well. I mean, if you look at Elisa's face, there's no question that she's gone. I think in Sharon's interview, she even mentions that I think she noticed that Elisa was cold when she went and touched her. I just don't know why you take the person down before the first responders get there.
Yeah, normally you'd want to leave that intact, that scene.
Yeah.
And
very weird.
That is so odd.
So,
where
are you at with the case?
So, we did the whole season on it, and an investigator from a different state kind of took it up, and a lawyer kind of got interested, and he started doing this analysis, and we actually had him on towards the end of the season. He's put together a document where he's got, I think at that time he had 30, and now he's probably at more like 40 or 50 different points that are pointing towards this being a homicide. When you look into Brad's criminal past, which was somewhat lengthy, he did have previous charges for strangling a woman in particular, a wife of his previously.
Mm-hmm.
And the story around that is kind of what we're concerned about, because with that charge, it seemed like he was trying to force some type of sexual act on her around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. She didn't want to participate that, and then he wound up strangling her. And she thankfully survived. She, filed charges, and he spent some time in prison for that. But so this investigator is still working on this case. The tough thing is, Minneapolis PD is just kind of like they want to just wipe their hands of it. But the medical examiner left it undetermined, because the medical examiner basically couldn't rule out homicide. So that has left a little bit of a doorway in, and we're hoping that the investigator, John Bishop, that's working with us, can get to present the information to the medical examiner. We originally were told there was a strong possibility that was going to happen, and then something changed. And at this point, it's looking like they want to pull together some of MPD's investigators and present the information to them. They're all very afraid of me being there. I don't know why, but that's fine, because John Bishop's the one that really has the analysis that they need to hear. But that's where it's at right now. Her family, in close contact with me through this whole process. We had a march in Elisa's honor on October, I think it was the 10th or the 11th of this year. And we had a bunch of people that took to the streets with us, and we walked from the Cedar Inn close to where she lived all the way down to Nokomis Lake, where they have a tree that's been planted in her honor. and we put pink ribbons on the tree, and there was a lot of speeches and crying, and so yeah.
Didn't they try to get DNA off the scarf?
That was, when we first started looking at it, that was kind of my first thing too. Hey, we got to check out this scarf. Like, is DNA on it? The problem is he was living there. So for his DNA, that's one of those things where
plausible deniability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the DNA could be on there. And one of the things that's very odd, just the way that it's phrased in his interview with the detectives, is he's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this or not, but I just want to be clear that, we just got married. So, obviously we had sex. And when her body was found, she was fully clothed except for only her pants. So basically just her underwear was on. So one of the things that we're concerned about is, why is he talking about it in that way? And when did it happen? That's one of the things that the investigator is currently trying to figure out, because he's put a timeline together and he's like, I don't know when this happened. Like, I can track where they were practically that whole day. He's saying that they had sex at some point. I don't know when that was. So yeah, we're hoping that we can kind of get some of the MPD to look at it again. And if we can just get the medical examiner to really look at that determination again, and if it could potentially shift to homicide at all, I think that would put us in a whole different
How important
situation.
is it that it's listed homicide versus open question on that medical exam?
Extremely, extremely important, because there's almost this crossover of responsibility. Like when you have a medical examiner come out and say, my official ruling is suicide in this case, the police will effectively follow that lead and say, okay, that case is closed. We don't have anything else to investigate there. And if the family tries to push through with them, they're just going to go back to, hey, look, we've got the expert here. They say that that's what it is. And I also want to be fair about this. I mean, I've got kind of what's considered the police handbook here, and it's very, very clear. And I know this just from my experience with my shows as well. I don't know if ever you would find a family that would agree with a suicide ruling. It is extremely common to find families that won't believe that and won't be willing to believe that.
Well, no one wants to believe their family member would do that, in most cases.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and think of the emotional aspect. Like you might feel like you're abandoning them or, making them seem to be less. That's one of the things that's tough that I kind of watch for in the cases that I cover. And in Elisa's at the start, I was like, okay, I need to really be careful with this one, because this could be one of those situations. This could be one of those families that just isn't going to believe it. But as you start getting into the details, and they had access to so much information, and you really start diving into that, it's like, okay, there's something absolutely wrong here. I know it's a tough case. I know that it's hard for an investigator to take all this material and to try to turn something out of it. And I think for a prosecutor, it's going to be even more difficult. But I do think that it's the right thing to do to at least try and to at least try to drive this to truth, because of your point earlier, Doug. You got to take these guys off the street, because it's not going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get it, because think about it. You got to put yourself in the prosecutor's place. They don't want to waste a bunch of resources and have him go free anyhow.
Right.
So it's this double whammy. Either you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I have the utmost respect for the police. I know they need, more detectives. Yeah. I don't know if they need more street cops, but they definitely need more detectives who are, actively doing forensics and those kinds of things, because I really do think it would save them money in the long run. It's obvious.
Well, and I do feel like, in Minneapolis in particular, we've gone through extremely challenging times this year.
Yep.
And I know a lot of those conversations, like, defund the police. And I think there's an important talk to have about reshaping the scope of what the duties are there. And it might even be affected by stuff like, now we're starting to get some national looks in terms of like marijuana laws and things like that. Yeah. Like if we can kind of focus where those resources are participating and aiming, maybe they could be better at those particular types of cases, and we don't need them to be worrying about, nailing some 20-year-old who they found with a bag of weed somewhere or something.
Yeah, it's pick your battles. It's a case of pick your battles.
Well, the thing is with the drug war, guys.
Yeah,
we've wasted so many resources.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a drug user. I don't want other people to use drugs. But sometimes I do wonder if they were never illegal, if anybody would even, they'd all be ignored. Maybe there wouldn't be any drug addicts right now. I remember a statement. I've got to just share this. I remember I was watching TV with my grandmother. Then they were making a cocaine arrest. And my grandmother looked at me and she goes, "Why would anybody want to do cocaine? That's an old person's drug." And I went, wow. She said it used to be, it was illegal. You could buy it anywhere. What's the big deal? But see, nobody was, very few cocaine addicts.
Yeah.
Because it was forbidden fruit, But, it hasn't slowed drug use down at all. And there's just think of the jillions of dollars that have been wasted. To me, the best way to handle drugs would be to prescribe them, give them away, whatever, educate people. Do whatever you got to do, but God, spend your resources on violent crime.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Oregon kind of going through their decriminalization of narcotics and what type of model that might provide for the rest of the country. But I think to your point, we choose our battles. Like let's really use those resources in the way that does make our communities safer. And yes, no one wants to see a bunch of people severely addicted, heroin addicts on your front lawn. But I also don't want guys that, choke women and kill women running around either. So,
well, when it comes to cannabis, marijuana, I don't smoke it, but when I was a kid and in radio, come on, I work in radio. there's a lot of people in radio that might partake.
Spin some records.
Yeah. I have yet to see a violent pothead, to be honest. My own personal dealings with them. Yeah, they're normally happy, hungry people. Hey, I love seeing you. You got pizza? And that's really about it. I mean, so it's a fool's errand to go after that. And because, it all comes down to politics. Let's just be honest. That's the whole thing of it, is politics. And if it wasn't for William Randolph Hearst, we'd all be able to smoke it because he was angry because he's a timber baron and they were making papers out of hemp. He got pissed off and said, well, I can't have this happen. And he got a hold of his friends in Washington. Next thing you know, it's a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, see, John, I've got a question. How many... this domestic violence, this domestic murder that may not have happened.
Yeah.
Because of the DNA contamination, that's got to continue. That's got to be a problem no matter what. But isn't the rule that most of murders happen by people that know the victim?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not the rule, the statistic. And it's really people that you're in an intimate relationship with. That's the highest risk. That's why so many of these investigations, if it is a woman that has gone missing or something, they're looking at the husband or they're looking at the boyfriend and they're pulling them in and putting them through some very tough questioning. It's because it is such a high percentage.
Yeah.
And
did they do that in this case?
In a way, they did interview him. They kind of took him out to the car. There's a big hole in the interview that has always bothered me, and that is about the fight that they had the night before and how that ended. Because his story is effectively, we were fighting outside in the neighbor's yard. We came back inside. I went to the living room, and then she just went downstairs, and I don't know what happened from there. And I've been in a lot of disagreements with, my loved ones in the past, and fights don't just they don't just end. Like, there's something else that happens there. There's some, like, did you make up, or did she say, well, you sleep up here because I'm sleeping down? Like, there's something that has to occur there. And the detective that was interviewing him just did not press on it at all. Just didn't go into that hole of really even describing what the fight was about, which he did give a little bit of a lame explanation. But if you want to hear it for yourselves, just check out the podcast, 3 Men and a Mystery. But
that's just amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there at all, John, but it's just amazing they didn't push harder on him. I mean, it really is just amazing. I'm not a detective, and I know, to push hard, especially what he did after the fact, the way he treated possessions, the way he was acting. Well, that's a little bit of a red flag. Maybe the guy might have had something more to do with it than what he's telling. Why not push a little bit harder?
Oh, well, get this, Joel. Just a little while after that, he decides to go to Oklahoma. He's there. He's taken a woman. I believe that they've been doing a lot of drugs. There's a young man that's at home. I think he's 23 years old. And he calls his mom, and he's like, Mom, did you say that these people could move in? And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, there's these people, and they're just kind of like moving into the house that I'm at right now. And she's like, well, call the police. Now, I don't think Brad or the girl that was with him knew that that house was owned by a deputy. So the police show up, and effectively, I don't know if they were planning on squatting or what, but they see the police are showing up, and they scramble. The woman hides in the backyard. She's found by the cops and arrested. They eventually track Brad down to a bar that is nearby, and he's hiding behind a karaoke speaker. And he gets arrested and put into jail for that. And that's, just a matter of months after this instance with Elisa. So it doesn't seem to end, but there's, like, Elisa's family is almost wondering, like, is this guy an informant or something? Like, why is he always getting off with these light slaps on the wrist and not serving any real serious amount of time for these charges? And are they going to see justice, for her daughter? Her mother really is a woman that is just so passionate, and I could see where Elisa's work ethic came from, because her mom is just an extremely hard worker, basically raised 2 girls on her own. And it's just heartbreaking. She's in contact with me all the time. Elisa's sister actually just had a fight with COVID, and thankfully got through that okay as well.
Well, did she have any enemies that you know of, Elise? Is there anybody out there that you could think of that would want to see harm come to her, other than the company, the people that we're just talking about?
To the opposite, Joel. I haven't done coverage on a case where I've had so many people reach out and first of all say, there's no way she ended her own life. And by the way, this is one of the most caring people, one of the most helpful people. She had friends that were struggling. She would leave food on their doorstep. I mean, I still hear from people. Just a few weeks ago, we were contacted by someone else that wanted to share more information about this. No, we couldn't find any trace at all of anyone that would want to harm her. And, look at the logistics of what's happening there. I think the biggest harm that has actually happened to Elisa is that Sharon isn't being upfront. Sharon is someone that I've been able to talk to only in email, only a few times, agreed to be interviewed a few times. And I told her, we don't have to do an interview that goes on air. I just want to talk to you. I just want to understand this better. And then we've got this investigator from Oklahoma that's been out here several times, also lined up time to talk to Sharon. She doesn't show up. And Sharon on Facebook made a post saying, with a picture of Brad, saying, this guy killed my friend. If you ever see this guy, punch him in the throat. This guy killed my friend.
What's her background that makes her so fearful of talking to anybody? That she would be afraid.
I don't know that there's anything in her background outside of there might be some former drug use or things like that. But I think it could be the interaction with Brad. One of the things that we did get, I mentioned the text messages earlier because we literally got a dump from Brad's phone and a dump from Elisa's phone of all their text messages, and you can see all the communication. But the dump from Brad's phone also showed communication to Sharon. And there's this strange kind of street persona that Brad would talk to Sharon in that he wouldn't talk to Elisa in. And some talk about him having friends that could do things to people and things like that. There was kind of this gangster representation happening between Brad and Sharon that I didn't see any trace of with Elisa. With Elisa, he was just, the normal, nice guy. Yes, we're having fights, disagreements. Kind of. And this guy's currency, at least from what we understand, is women. This is the kind of guy that he has a girlfriend. He's living with her. She's buying him stuff. He starts kind of getting something else on the side, and then he jumps, and then he goes to move in with the next girl. And that's one of the things I was a little concerned about because there was 2 investigators that were working it, a man and a woman. And the woman is the one that interviewed Brad. And the only time where I really feel like he gets nervous is there's a moment where the male investigator kind of poked his head in the car to ask a quick question. And you could just hear Brad's voice kind of change and things tighten up. But when it's just him and the female investigator, it sounds to me like he's in his game, like that's his comfort spot. He knows how to talk to women.
But John, it's a big leap from being a creep to a murderer.
Yes.
You know, that's a big leap.
Yeah.
And you're, to tie that together, I can understand some aspects of them being hesitant, the investigators. Unless they have an absolute slam dunk, that was him, irrefutable evidence with what's going on in this culture right now in the world. They're a little afraid. They're a little afraid. I've seen that even in my own community. And I live in a small town of 2,000 people where they're afraid of harassing the wrong person because they don't want the protesters in our town next. So, so I get it. I get the jumpiness from that aspect.
I do too. And I know this is a tough case. I don't want to misrepresent it, but I also know that when you get people that have the right skill set and have conversations with them, we had 2 forensic psychologists come on to our show that did an analysis of those text messages. And I put it to them simply. I said, with what you're seeing from Elisa's, is this someone that would or could have ended her own life? Both of them said no, absolutely not. And from what you've seen with Brad, is this the type of personality? One of them in particular works at a police department in California where he essentially is looking at criminal information to identify people that might be offenders next. So almost in like a pre-crime, Philip K.
Minority
Dick
Report kind of thing going
exactly.
on.
Yeah, he's kind of profiling people that they think are going to be criminal offenders. And his analysis on Brad, absolutely, this guy has the makeup. He's got the criminal history already showing the propensity for this. And we've looked at some cases where criminals will develop, like their skill sets will change. It might start that he only choked his first wife, but then while he's sitting in jail, something in his head goes, well, if I ever get in that situation again, I have to make sure she can't press charges. And then there's a development for the next time it happens. I know
if this is a murder, I was going to say, if this is a murder, it won't be the first murder that may be even obvious as murder. It just gets written off as a suicide.
Right.
Because, how many times have they found people shot in the back of the head twice? and if you look at the autopsy reports, it's suicide. Really?
Yeah.
What does that happen?
Yeah.
Sure.
You could almost start a show just on those cases in particular. There's a lot of cases I run into where that's the sticking point. It's been deemed a suicide. Yeah.
They're kind of endless, you know.
Yeah.
You talk about the Jeffrey Epstein case, which everybody knew about. Everybody predicted that.
Yeah.
He's going to get suicided, you know, is the term we all use.
Suicided?
Yes.
What are you saying, Doug? What are you saying? He might have been murdered?
Not saying anything. I knew he was going to get suicided.
I know it.
But there's so many cases. There's so much death in the country. You can't blame anybody for not keeping up with all this. I mean, think of any suicides. You know, I was reading stats the other day, and it's just shocking. But how many of those were murders? Who knows?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who knows? My own uncle died. In the courts, they said it was a suicide, but oh my goodness, the amount of evidence that was there that it wasn't was mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So
that's something that I'm kind of thankful for now, is that there is this level of podcasters and YouTubers and this social media aspect for those families. Just if they want to get their version out or their side of the story out and see if other people could help them support it or help them refute it or help them come to some better understanding, there are avenues for that now. That's a lot different than it was just 10 years ago. I mean, you'd be stuck with these questions with no one to reach out to. And once the police tell you, nope, that's it. We're not going to do anything else on this. There was nowhere to go. I mean, you might hope for, I'm going to write a letter to John Walsh or America's Most Wanted, and maybe it'll get picked up. But the number of channels that there are out there now for those people to be heard and to not have their voices clipped into a 5-minute news segment. If they want to come on my channel and do an 1.5-hour interview where they really go over everything they know and believe about the case, we can do that now. Like it's just such a better place. And even, you know, if not in every case we're going to help actually progress it, or we're not going to get the police to change their mind, we're still going to make connections with people, and we're still going to help them get through a day and maybe feel just a little bit better that, hey, you know what? Now there's some guy that kind of cares about me and my family. And by the way, that guy's got several thousand people that also now care about me and my family.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That really is.
Yeah.
Bringing closure to a case and justice to a case is so very, very important.
Well, if you have a loved one who you loved, and all of a sudden you get a call and say so-and-so killed themselves, you just talked to them the day before, and everything's great in their life. But they mentioned something that somebody might try to kill them.
Yeah, by the way, there's guys trying to kill me.
Then they turn up suicided. You can't get any support from the police, only because there's no evidence that they can see, or nothing they could get a prosecution on. Just because it's evidence, you're going to win a case.
Have you ever heard of a suicide on the wedding day?
No.
I can't find another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't think of any. There's been guys that told me they wish they would have on their wedding day.
You're just thinking of yourself, Joe.
No, I'm happily married. Do it all over again 20 times over.
I'm just joking.
But it's a head scratch. You got my wheels turning. Because, you know, a lot of what you've talked about is just so obvious where to begin and who to talk to. It almost makes you want to scream, just talk to this person, put more pressure on. You wish you could get involved.
Actually,
really
this case that John just presented, Joel, is not a head scratcher. To me, it's a head scratcher on how could you get a prosecution.
Yeah.
That's the head scratcher.
Yes. No, but that's
the
exactly
thing, because you've got experts out there if you engage them. But if you've got investigators that are saying, you know, no, we're done processing this, those experts, those opinions are not being brought into the case for consideration. That's even why when John Bishop, our initial approach was, let's get to the ME. Let's talk to the ME, because we know if we can get that switch flipped from undetermined to, okay, this is homicide. And John Bishop believes he's got the information to prove that. Then the flow of pressure towards the investigation completely changes. Because at that point, now it's, okay, we've got a homicide that's on this.
I was going to bring up something. I don't know if it's ever been thought of, but if you take what did you call it? A handkerchief?
The scarf.
The scarf. I couldn't think of the word. You would think there would be a ton of her DNA on the one side where it was around her neck, but you would think they could do testing and go, oh my God, there's DNA here. Tons of his DNA on the other side.
Right.
And you would think that would
could be
good evidence, but
yeah, I don't know if it would, like bring the case completely home, but it would be good supporting evidence or anecdotal type of information. They did actually run DNA tests on the scarf. They did find, of course, tons of her DNA on there. They also found several mixed profiles that they couldn't fully identify. But interestingly, they said they didn't find Brad's and they didn't find Sharon's. Sharon took her down. So how did that happen?
Somebody wore gloves.
Either someone's wearing gloves or that story just isn't accurate. And that's another big thing, like the story about how she comes down, the way that she lands, the way that her body's found, the rigor mortis that has been set in, the blanching that is showing up on her body, the lividity. There's a lot of things that you could look at and say, okay, the story that we're hearing, that we're being told that she was cut down and then 5 minutes later the cops showing up. If you look at that lividity and that blanching, that doesn't really hold up. So why are we being lied to?
We got less than a minute left, John. I'd like you to tell the audience how they can get a hold of you, where they can get all your content out there. I know you're on YouTube and you have a lot of podcasts, so please, would you tell the audience how they can hear all that
the easiest way to find me? Easiest way to find me is LordanArts. That's LordanArts.com. And from that website, I've got links to the YouTube channel, to all the different podcasts. My Twitter account is also at LordanArts, LordanArts. We've got BrainScratch, Searchlight, Case Cracked. So we also do analyze cases that are solved, and we hope to learn from those so we can apply those in the other cases we're looking into. I've got a new podcast called Seriously Mysterious that you could find on your favorite podcatchers, and another one called Crime After Crime that I do with a fellow YouTuber, where we pick a true crime topic and then we go head to head on that particular topic, and the audience gets to vote on which story's better. So,
man, all sorts of good stuff, and we really appreciate you coming on the show, talking with us, and we really hope that we can help in some small way on this show. Maybe that just talking about it, our audience, you've seen something, something, you even hear a rumor, get a hold of John, get a hold of law enforcement, get a hold of somebody, and just say, hey, this is the odd thing I witnessed, or this is the strangeness that was involved. You might be that little crack in that case to bust it wide open. You just don't know. And so it has been just an honor and a privilege for us, John, to have you on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Well, until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other. Tune into BrainScratcher. It's interesting. You're going to love it. You're going to like it. I know if you like true crime, that is the place for you. Until next time, take care of each other.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.